So, Irina, I wanted to ask you this because there's a lot of, I want to say, confusion sometimes with buyers that are buying homes. When it comes to contracts, I know something that's really important when you're putting a contract together as a realtor are contingencies. Can you explain what a contingency is to, for example, a first-time home buyer or somebody that's for the very first time sitting down and looking at a contract?
Right. No, very good question. So, of course, there's different contingencies. There's several contingencies. And in fact, the more contingencies you have, well, I don't want to say the better, but the safer you are, I should say. So there is the first contingency that comes in place is, of course, an inspection contingency. Okay. You know, it's when you went under contract, you put the earnest money. Now you want to make sure, is this really the house, you know, on the level of, I mean, is this something that I can deal with repairs-wise and so on. So
that's an important one.
This is a very important one, and in a very hot market, which seems like we're coming back to, unfortunately, and I hated that, honestly. I really did hate that, is that very often that would be waived just because, you know, the sellers wanted to know, listen, I needed to know for sure that this is it. We're not going back and forth. But basically, this is the contingency. Usually depends. It's between 5 to 7 days. You know, the buyer has an opportunity to bring an inspector to the property, look at the property, and then decide, do they really want to move forward with this property? And if you decide not to, and you don't even have, what's really nice is this, that you don't even have to explain to the seller, really. In fact, the seller does not want to know your findings. I mean, this is also something new that came in place a couple of years ago, where you do not disclose to the seller unless they ask you to. And you just say, sorry, seller, I had all good faith here, but I changed my mind. In that case, you get your earnest money back, you're safe, you go and look for another property.
Perfect.
There's also a financial contingency. You know, that's when you're saying, hey, I have been pre-approved, everything's good, and hopefully they're working with somebody legit like you. So they're solid. There should not be any problems. However, life happens. Yeah. Sometimes people lose their job midway, right in the middle of the, you know, as they're trying to buy, or different reasons. Yeah. And this is another contingency when somebody is able to say they cannot obtain a loan. Yeah. They are able to get their earnest money back and, you know, be safe and go back either to the process or. Yeah.
So what I heard you say was, get your earnest money back a couple of times. So the way that I like to see it is contingencies protect your earnest money.
Absolutely.
So when somebody goes and puts a contract together and there are no contingencies in place, then you have what's earnest money. Can you briefly explain what earnest money means?
Yes, earnest money is, in a way, it's kind of like a security to the seller. Okay, it's like this deposit.
Does it go to the seller?
It does not go to the seller. Okay. However, it sits in the escrow account. Okay, you know, so it's just kind of mutual party, which is really good. And depending on the outcome of that contract, right, that sale, I mean, is this going to really happen or not? If it's not, then, you know, then escrow based on, you know, whether or not you had the contingencies in place. If you just walked away simply because you woke up the next morning and decided, no, I don't want to do this, then if you did that, for example, that's when that earnest money will go to the seller. And the seller, it's in a way, it's kind of like a little damage, you know, payment. I mean, security, whatever you want to say, security payment to the seller, saying sorry for the trouble. Here's your money. I'm just not going to do it.
How much in earnest money usually is people put down?
There's really no. I mean, this is very important to know. There's really no, a set amount that you have to do. Average people do about 1% of the purchase price. Say, for example, if you're buying a $500,000 house, it's a $5,000 earnest money. Yeah. Again, I've seen people do. I mean, I remember on one of my listings, I got an offer with $500 earnest money.
Oh wow. Okay.
Well, in that case, because we didn't have anybody else, we just we'll take it, and everything was fine. Everything, you know, went through. You know, especially with those that, you know, say they don't have people that are using either zero down loans, you know, they're asking for closing costs. Really, there is a way. I mean, probably not in our market. Really buy with zero in. So those are the times.
And the earnest money at the end of the day really does go towards their down payment or closing costs.
Absolutely. You're gonna it's just going towards your, you know, down payment or closing costs, whatever. But
What I thought was silly is back in a couple of years ago, 2020, 2021, when people put earnest monies, let's say of $500,000 or 300,000, it was funny to me because the rule, legally speaking, the sellers cannot claim more than 5%.
Correct.
So what's the point, right, to put that big of a number just to look extremely attractive on the market? But at the same time, it's if you have a really educated real estate agent like yourself that understands guidelines, regulations, and a little bit of real estate law.
Absolutely.
Like knowing
you
law
have
is
to.
you have to know.
You have to know.
So that way you're like, okay, these are all our offers, or this is what we're offering. And you look at the big picture and you say, okay, these don't even make sense because it's not even applicable. So let's go with X, Y, or Z, because that's what's best for the client.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in fact, I have seen when I would be on the buyer's side, listing agents, which I love it. And, you know, that means that somebody was there knowing what they're doing. Yeah. You know, sometimes when you're having an offer come through, it's not always the highest number that wins. It's properly structured a contract that makes sense. Yeah. And I don't know, it's just, you are right. It's honestly, those, I always call them a suicidal, you know, even if the client would ask me sometimes, like, Irina, we don't care. We have to, I would have to make sure we sit down and we talk. Listen, life happens. Things happen. Or another thing that people did is release of earnest money, like automatic release of earnest money to the seller, meaning that if I wake up tomorrow and I realize that I made the biggest mistake of my life, you get to keep $100,000. That is just, wow. Yeah.
Anyways, thank you. Thank you for answering a couple of these questions.
Thank you.